Hey everyone, today we have a FG100 that we are working on the carburetor on. Now, unfortunately I do not have the cover, but that shouldn't be too much of a problem. The owner of this has it and they forgot to bring it to me, so we might kind of fudge it a little bit and maybe try to, when we go down to the time limit tuning, we might look at it and maybe put like a different filter over it to try to give us a little resistance, but we're going to have ourselves. Basically what's happening is this: it's on choke right now, it's on. So it's a little hard to catch, but the throttle cable is disconnected and it was on just above idle, and it's real janky. It's just fluctuating left and right, and it obviously needs to be cleaned. The gas in there looks to be a little ancient, and when you prime it, it does leak a little bit. So we have a little bit of carb work. Let's go ahead and put it on the table and see what we have going on. I don't know if it's just this machine or what, but everything is differently sized than I would expect it to be. For instance, let me grab that before I lose it. I worked on the transmission. It had both 10mm, 7/16, not 12mm bolts on it. We're missing a 10mm on the pull handle, and obviously this carb has been replaced, but I don't think it was a very good one. So this is the throttle cable location. One of the nuts that holds this on, it did fall off. So before we do anything, let us try to at least get the throttle cable set to the right area. So we have it right about there. Give it a couple extra, that way in case we adjust the idle, because I think it might be a little high, we don't have to worry about it. So now that's done, let's take this out. Yeah, I smell the geriatric fuel. So that very well could be a lot of our problem. Yeah, it's disgusting. Where is it leaking from? Let's see. It's not priming. Well, that could be part of our problem right there too. So, fuel line. Okay, so I think what we have is a series of unfortunate events. This is the return to outlet, but that is the fuel filter. I pulled on it and it is moving the full fuel filter. I bet if I pull on this one, be the return, and it is. So we have the fuel lines are next up. So I don't know how well you saw that. This is the fuel filter. It was on the return. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them in the right spot and put this on. Here's a helpful hint. We need to put fuel lines through grommets, cut a slot in them, and get them a little oily. Let me get my oil out. Make sure the fuel level is beneath the grommet, by the way, otherwise you'll be leaking. And it slides right in. And if you only do that with one, then you have a pretty good mark. Except it's also too short. Yeah, it's too short. So I'm going to get a new one. The person that bought this actually got a decent carb. It's just not the right one. Well, didn't install it right, excuse me. So the only color I have, I like to see the fuel flow, so I like to get the ones you can see through. So yeah, it's not going to match, but it's actually going to make it a little easier. So now if we prime it, we should see the primer bulb fill. And look what we have here. No leaking. It is now working appropriately. Let us put this back on. Actually, we need to put this on about half an inch or so from the other one. When you install these carbs, you generally don't have to take off the throttle cable from the machine. Oh, is this one not a 10 millimeter? Okay, I'm going to tighten that so it stays put, and we'll give it a pull again. Carb is complete, cable's on, so hopefully now the cable's still acting up. Yeah, it's still acting up, but we can at least see if it's going to run. The little actuator, I think, is going bad on it. It's really dirty, but let's at least see what happens. Oh, that's a joke. So I'm thinking it's running a tad rich. At least that's what I'm smelling. It does have a tuning ability on it. Some of them are set. So let's tune it a little bit. Okay, so I got it all put back together. Carb looks to be good. I did have to replace the top bit. It wasn't, let's see if I can do it. On the machine, it wasn't wanting to get all the way back to idle. Granted, it is now. It would always stay like right there, assuming that it would even go off of full throttle. So that was annoying, but put a new one on. We should be set. Let's give it a pull and see if it will run without choke. Let's prime it. Probably would help if we put the fuel lid on. We might have to turn the idle up a little bit. I have no idea where the other one was set to. Could be too low. Could have been on at all. This is an adjustable carb, so let's adjust it. Put a little air filter material in front of it. So that wasn't exactly the most perfect way of doing it, but it got the job done. So what did we learn today? Well, make sure you put the carb, when you put a new one on, you put the actual correct fuel line and return line in the correct location. So the return, the carb is consistently moving fuel all the time, moving fuel. And the return is just basically it sending back the fuel that was unused to go back into the tank. Now, if you have it backwards, then unless that return line is under the level of the fuel, you're not going to have anything. Would it have worked if you filled the tank? Probably. Would it have been a problem because eventually maybe the fuel filter would be restricting the return of the fuel? Probably. Maybe the fuel filter fell off, or will fall off, or the fuel filter isn't. Who knows? You know, that part's a little hard for me to say. What I can say though is that it definitely needs to be on the right location. So let's remember. Here's another one. This one is for the fuel, this one's for the return. You'll know this because the return is usually closest to the primer bulb. Oh wait, no, excuse me. This is the return and that's the fuel. So how you can find that out? So you put your finger on there. Nothing's happening. Put my finger on here. It's having a hard time sucking, you see that? Because my finger's on it. Now if I do that again, let go, look. So if you don't know which one it is, put your finger on it, prime it, good to go. If you don't have a primer, that one's going to be a little bit easier. That one's not going to be this type of carb anyway, so you shouldn't have to worry about it. But here is a carb from another one. Usually the inlet is going to be the closest one that's not on the diaphragm side. Is going to be the other side, because that's usually where the pump is, where the fuel is located. It's behind this little wall. That way it's a little easier to figure out that way. Just remember that's where the fuel pump is, so don't worry about it. But for this one, if you do have a primer, put your finger on it and you should be set to go. Okay, well, if that helps you, definitely put a comment below, so like and subscribe. I will catch you in the next video. Have a good evening.